The evening descends upon Weatherfield, casting long, bruised shadows across the damp cobblestones of Coronation Street. The sky above the terraced houses is a heavy, unrelenting gray, promising rain that has yet to fall. The Rover's return stands as a familiar beacon of warmth, its frosted windows glowing with an inviting amber light against the encroaching night. But the comfort of the pub is a stark, almost cruel contrast to the despair unfolding just a few streets away on Victoria Street. High above the tarmac, perched precariously on a metal scaffolding rig outside the builder's yard, sits Will. The wind whips at his thin jacket, a harsh, biting chill that he barely seems to register. In his trembling, pale hand, he grips a half-empty bottle of cheap vodka. His eyes, usually bright with youth, are hollowed out, dark circles bruising the delicate skin beneath them. The trauma of the past few months, the insidious grooming by Megan, the psychological manipulation, has finally coalesced into this single, agonizing moment of complete fracture. He takes another reckless swig, the cheap alcohol burning a fiery path down his throat, a desperate, temporary numbing agent for the screaming in his mind. Below him, the street is relatively quiet, the residents oblivious to the tragedy threatening to unfold above their heads. But then, a figure emerges from the corner shop. It is Asha Allahan. She pulls her coat tighter around her frame, her gaze drifting upward as a sudden, violent gust of wind rattles the metal poles of the scaffolding. Her brow furrows in confusion. She squints into the gloom, her breath catching sharply in her throat as the silhouette comes into terrifying focus. She recognizes the slump of the shoulders, the frantic, erratic movements of the boy on the ledge. Absolute panic floods her system. She does not shout. She knows instinctively that startling him, that breaking the fragile silence, could be fatal. Instead, her hands dive into her pockets, fumbling frantically for her phone. Her fingers fly across the glowing screen, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She bypasses the emergency services for a crucial moment, her thumb finding Maggie Driscoll's contact. The phone rings, the sound agonizingly slow in her ear. When Maggie answers, Asha's voice is a frantic, hushed whisper, urging her to get to the yard immediately, telling her that her grandson is on the edge. Maggie's arrival is a blur of desperate motion. She rounds the corner, her face pale, the deep lines of age and recent, bitter family strife suddenly starkly visible under the flickering, sickly yellow street lamp. The terrible tension between her and Ben over Alan's death, the explosive arguments over the missing £2,000 from the safe, all of it evaporates in the face of this immediate, terrifying reality. She stares up at her grandson, a weathered hand flying to her mouth to stifle a ragged sob. The sheer drop below him is horrifying, a fatal plunge to the hard, unforgiving concrete. She does not hesitate. Pushing past a wide-eyed Asha, Maggie begins to climb. The metal rungs are cold and slick with the evening damp, her joints protesting with every upward heave, but pure, unfiltered desperation fuels her ascent. She reaches the platform, her breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. She does not approach too quickly. She lowers herself to the grating, keeping a safe distance, her eyes locked onto Will. His head snaps toward her, his grip on the glass bottle tightening until his knuckles turn stark white. He looks like a cornered animal, terrified, ready to bolt, ready to fall. Maggie's voice, when she finally speaks, is a masterclass in controlled, agonizing terror. She keeps it soft, a gentle, lilting melody that cuts through the whistling wind. She talks to him not as a troubled, broken teenager, but as her boy, her blood. She weaves words of comfort, acknowledging the horrific, pitch-black darkness that Megan dragged him into, validating the agonizing pain that led him to this perilous ledge. She tells him that jumping, that letting go, is letting his abuser win. She urges him to take the power back, to step away from the edge and let the family help him carry the crushing weight. Every single syllable is saturated with a fierce, unconditional love. Down below, a small crowd has begun to form, drawn by the quiet commotion. Hope Dobbs stands at the very edge of the pavement, her expression unreadable, a complex mask hiding the sudden surge of protective anxiety she feels. She remembers seeing Will with Megan, the fleeting, strange moments that did not make sense then, but form a sickening, complete picture now. Hope watches Maggie slowly inch closer to Will on the scaffolding. She watches Will's thin shoulders heave, the silent sobs racking his frail frame. The vodka bottle slips from his numb fingers, shattering on the platform grating, a sharp, violent sound that breaks the terrifying spell. Maggie lunges forward, wrapping her arms securely around him, pulling him back from the precipice with a strength she did not know she possessed. They collapse together onto the cold metal, a tangle of limbs and tears. The relief that washes over the street below is palpable, a collective exhalation of breath. The scene shifts to the claustrophobic, stifling confines of the builder's yard flat. The air inside is stale, thick with the smell of unwashed clothes and lingering, suffocating anxiety. The blinds are drawn incredibly tight, blocking out any trace of the Weatherfield evening. Daniel Osbourne sits huddled on the edge of the worn sofa, the soft, blue glow of his laptop screen illuminating his exhausted, drawn features. He is a shadow of his former self, his usually neat hair disheveled, his eyes fixed with a manic, terrifying intensity on the scrolling text of a social media page. The anonymous internet troll, known only as Truthteller, has relentlessly dismantled his life piece by piece, attacking his character, his teaching career, and now, crossing the unforgivable, ultimate line of targeting his young son, Becky. The memory of the ambush earlier in the day is still raw, an open wound. The sudden attack near number 1, the two lads hurling paint and vicious vitriol, their phones thrust gleefully in his face to capture his humiliation for the world to see. The faint red paint stains are still visible on his knuckles where he scrubbed his skin raw in the bathroom sink. Jody Ramsey moves around the small kitchenette, the deliberate clinking of ceramic mugs breaking the heavy, oppressive silence. She is a woman who thrives in the margins, and this forced isolation suits her perfectly. Pushed out of number 8, she has seamlessly inserted herself into Daniel's rapid downward spiral. She brings him a cup of tea, settling onto the sofa beside him, her presence a heavy, suffocating blanket. Daniel does not look up. He mutters, his voice hoarse and broken, that the troll has to be someone who knows him, someone intimately acquainted with the geography of his life. He lists the impossibilities, his brilliant mind spinning in frantic, useless circles. Jody leans in, her voice a low, conspiratorial murmur. She plants the poisonous seed with surgical precision. She suggests David Platt. She points out David's long history of spite, his capacity for cruelty, the proximity of the salon, the way David looked at him earlier when the humiliating paint incident was mentioned. Daniel's eyes widen, a dangerous flicker of misplaced rage igniting in the dark. He is grasping at straws, desperate for a target, a physical manifestation of his torment that he can actually confront. Jody watches the anger take root, a subtle, highly satisfied twitch at the corner of her mouth. She is weaving a complex web, isolating him further from his family, deliberately ignoring Ken's desperate voicemails, urging him to return from his fabricated holiday in the lakes. Daniel slams the laptop shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet room. He declares, his voice trembling with fury, that he will not be a victim anymore. He will find David. He will make the torment stop. Meanwhile, at number 11, an entirely different kind of storm is brewing. The terraced house feels smaller than usual, the walls closing in rapidly on summer Spellman. The parlor is steeped in an unbearable, thick tension. George Shuttleworth stands by the fireplace, his usually jovial face etched with profound sorrow and a rigid, unyielding sense of duty. In his large, trembling hands, he holds a small, leather-bound journal. Christina stands beside him, her arms tightly crossed, her posture highly defensive but equally shaken by the discovery. Summer is backed against the hallway door, her eyes darting frantically between them, her chest heaving in a silent, escalating panic. The brutal murder of Theo Silverton hangs over them all like a heavy executioner's blade. Theo's lifeless body, discovered behind the corner shop, following Lisa and Carla's wedding reception, has ignited a massive police investigation that is slowly, inexorably tightening its noose around Summer. George's voice breaks as he speaks, shattering the suffocating silence. He quotes the chilling words written in Summer's own hand, the violent, visceral fantasy of putting a gun to Theo's head. He asks her, his tone a heartbreaking mix of pleading and accusation, why she would ever write such a terrible thing, why he caught her desperately, trying to hurl the diary into the open fire just hours ago if she truly had absolutely nothing to hide. Summer's defense is frantic, a chaotic scramble of half-truths and desperate deflections. She screams that it was just a diary, a harmless way to vent her frustration, that Theo was a monster who cornered her, who threatened her very existence. But her words ring hollow against the crushing weight of the physical evidence. Christina interjects, her voice sharp and piercing, reminding Summer of the pig brooch, the highly distinct piece of jewelry she wore to the wedding, the very same brooch the police found discarded and heavily stained with blood in Theo's flat. Todd Grimshaw bursts through the front door, immediately sensing the aggressive confrontation. He forcefully inserts himself between Summer and George, forming a fierce, protective barrier. He demands to know what is going on, his blind loyalty to Summer preventing him from seeing the mounting pile of circumstantial guilt. George, looking entirely exhausted and broken, confesses to Todd. He admits that the heavy burden of the lie was too great, that the intense pressure from the police, combined with Christina's tangled statements, forced his hand. He has spoken to Detective Sergeant Lisa Connor Swain. He has told the authorities about the journal, about the highly suspicious behavior. Todd's reaction is explosive. He violently accuses George of a horrific betrayal, of throwing a terrified girl to the wolves to save his own skin. The shouting match that ensues is deafening, tearing at the very fabric of their cobbled-together family. Amidst the chaos, Summer realizes the terrifying, inescapable truth. The police are coming for her. The narrative has been set, the evidence meticulously arranged in a damning mosaic. She slips away from the argument, retreating silently to the narrow staircase. Her mind is racing, rapidly calculating the terrifying odds. She cannot stay in Weatherfield. She cannot face the cold, unyielding walls of an interrogation room, the piercing, relentless questions of Kit and Lisa. She